Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How is everybody?
Doing okay.
Great. Everybody have a good break?
No break for us.
No
Wasn't
break?
no break for us. No break
No
for
break
me. I've
for
been
y'all.
working. No.
Did you have a break, Dr. Lamb?
No.
No.
I visited students. I visited 14 schools.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I had a great time.
That's good.
I came into the office and worked one day, but then I was on the road visiting schools and meeting some principals I hadn't met before, and all of my group that are graduating this semester. I visited all their schools. I've got 14 that I've been working with for 2 years in a special program. And so I got to see all of them. Well, I've met them a few times in our Saturday. They had low residency where they met on Saturdays 3 times each semester with their central office personnel. And it was a collaborative project with Gaston County Schools. And so I got to go from Gastonia to Belmont to Mount Holly to Waco to Lowell to McAdenville to South Point, Belmont. What other towns did I go to? But anyway, I got to do that last week. So I had a great time and kept up with all my grading and all the other stuff. So yeah, but it was a good week. Hope y'all have one too. Well, I want to share my screen quickly and we'll look at our weekly schedule. And so we are at week 10. This is case study 3. Group 4 will present first tonight, then group 1, group 2, group 3. So it's 4, 1, 2, 3 tonight. So next week, the next 2 weeks, we've got a real treat in that Dr. Griffin Jordan will be presenting the next 2 weeks. She's going to be doing personnel, and then she's going to be doing facilities, and then we'll have another Easter break, and then back again off the break. We'll do case study 4, and then we'll do our final 2 classes. Dr. Griffin Jordan will do one of those on financial management, basically talk about the school budget and how she manages it, and then we'll finish up with sexual harassment. That last week's kind of light and any other topics that we have. So that's where we are. So I'll stop my share. And Dr. Griffin Jordan, you want to tell us about your trip up north before we dive in tonight?
Well, I went to see my baby. She's up in Cambridge, and it was snowing, and everybody still moved around, and they were out walking. And then I got emails from here, and you all had like 75-degree temperatures. So yeah, it was a very nice trip. I always enjoy seeing her, but I missed the weather. So
yeah. Well, we're glad you had a great trip. Glad you got to see her. All right, group 4, share your screen and let's dive in on the. We are
Dr. Lamb.
Yeah.
We do have a state champion on this line. Wilson Preparatory Academy won the state championship.
Yay.
So we did.
Well, congratulations. That's great. Yay. Yay.
I knew Carl was going to do that.
I knew Carl. Look,
I knew
Carl
it was coming.
down.
I knew Carl was going to do that.
I know. Always a hater. I'm telling you what, just like James Harden, always a hater. Well, congratulations to Wilson Prep. That's great. Congratulations.
Well, I've had lots of good news in the past couple weeks. State champion. I found out a couple weeks ago I got teacher of the year at my high school, and so that's been
well,
a whirlwind of excitement.
That's a great one. That's tremendous. If you got a press release on that, send it to me. I'll get it put on the web and we'll get it out on the wire. We love those things.
The Rock Hill Herald, I think, put something out, so I'll get that
Yeah,
to
find
you.
the link and send it to me. I'd love to have it.
Okay.
I'll get Jackie Bridges to put it in our weekly magazine. We
Sounds
like to
good.
celebrate those things.
Sounds good. I'll do
And
that.
send
Team
me the
Force.
one for Wilson, for your state championship as well. I'll see if I can get it published too. Anytime you have something good news like that, send it to me.
Gotcha.
Will do. So Team Force had a lot of excitement in the past couple weeks, but
Oh, yeah.
tonight we're going to lead it off with case study 3. We are normal 2 and we are team 4. This is Terrence Thornton, state champion, Mallory Freeman, and then myself, Neely Potts. So we're gonna get going and start you guys off tonight. Okay, so this is just who's gonna kind of cover what within our group tonight in this case study 3. So Terrence is gonna start us off in a minute with an overview, and then towards the end, he'll talk a little bit about bullying. Mallory's gonna talk about the ethical paradigms, and then she's gonna wrap it up because she's a great closer for our group. And then I'm going to talk about some legal issues and then answer those 4 questions that we had to answer at the end of our case study. So we're going to go ahead and let Terrence lead off our group and give us a little overview of this case study 3.
All right, with case study overview, we basically looked at everything. Jimmy and Willie are good friends who attend the same high school. Their friendship turns into a romantic relationship, causing an unpleasant reaction from students and parents, which is different. Principal Mary Lou Hines receives phone calls and emails from parents wanting to address the situation between Jimmy and Willie. Parents jumping into something they don't really need to, and puts the principal kind of against the ropes. Parents express to Principal Hines if she does not take action, they will boycott the school, and the students will request prom be canceled if Jimmy and Willie attend as a same-sex couple, making threats for what they're gonna do. Principal Hines asked Jimmy and Willie to wait until after graduation to resume their relationship. Bad move, not legal at all. Jimmy and Willie's parents claim their First Amendment rights are being violated, and Jimmy and Willie asked to organize a day of diversity, a day of silence at the school to raise awareness around race, class, gender, and sexual identity.
Let me unmute, sorry. Okay, so very quickly, I want to go over the 4 ethical paradigms that we kind of revisit every time we talk about these case studies. And every single thing that happened in this case study was touched upon by these 4 ethical paradigms in one way or another. And the ethical paradigms kind of keep us in check as leaders to help us decide, are we serving everyone equitably? Have we silenced any voices? Are we acting in professionalism and things like that? So as far as the ethic of care, our group talked about how the rights of those students were not being protected because of the fact that she decided to kind of value others' opinions and also possibly her personal beliefs over what the students' rights should have been. And she seems to care more about the pushback that she's getting and the bad PR problems that it may create, other than instead of providing an equitable experience for all. And the ethic of justice, she's not protecting her students' rights under the Equal Access Act and in accordance with the 14th Amendment. She's not followed the due process to protect these rights and is not allowing the request and because she didn't she just kind of was like, let's just talk about that later. Maybe next time, or could you guys just wait with the request for the days of silence, the Gay Straight Alliance, and then the relationship in total, she totally dismissed because she felt like it created more problems than giving the students their equal rights. And that's a problem in the law. And with the ethic of critique, critique makes you go back and look at how are you representing each student in your school, and what does the law say, and who is the governing body representing each person. And as an administrator, you are representing that every kid in there. And so we said that she needs to make sure that she looks at the policies about PDA and handle that first. So a lot of that could have been nipped in the bud if she had gone and just been like, instead of, hey, can you just not like be gay this year? Maybe like do it later, or like not be open with it. It could have been like the policy and the handbooks have to do with, are you showing public displays of affection, and have we given you the proper due process to make sure that the things that are inappropriate should not happen, but you as a human being and your rights and your preferences are protected because you're just like everybody else. You're human. And again, she needed to review the policy on bullying. She used her position to influence students with a veiled threat. She made those kids, when she talked to them, seem like their choices was going to create harm for them, in turn making them not feel like a victim of bullying, but they created something for themselves. And that's not being a supportive administrator. And it's also unethical in the fact that it's a veiled threat. We're saying harm might come to you if you don't do like what we say. And the biggest thing with ethic of critique, is how are we silencing voices? And if we're not supporting them and representing the two boys, then their voices are silenced ultimately, and they're not being represented and supported in a way that they feel equal to everyone else. And in the ethic of profession, Mary Lou is not being professional by not addressing the public display of affection. In addition, she's violating students' FERPA rights when we start talking about all these parents coming in saying, what are you going to do? Or what did you do with these people? It's important that that's not their business if it's not their kid. The main thing is, I am doing what the law says. My main goal is keeping students safe. My main goal is making sure students are learning, instruction's great, and everybody's following the rules. And what I do with a child that's not yours is not necessarily your concern. So that is kind of a summation of our 4 ethical paradigms touched on in this case study.
Okay, so if we look at the legal aspects in this specific case, our first one, we talk about title, oh my gosh, tell me the right number, Mallory.
Title IX.
Title IX, thank you. Whew,
Sorry.
it's been a long day.
Okay.
But basically Title IX, it bans sexual discrimination in schools and through the Equal Access Act, which we see taking place in this case study, like Mallory touched on before, that, you know, by the principal asking these students basically to hold off their relationship till after graduation, you can't discriminate against any student based on their sexual orientation. And then if we look at under FERPA, which Mallory also touched on when she talked about the 4 ethical paradigms, this, as we know, protects students' privacy, including students' either transgender status or their sexual orientation. This is very important in this case, since we know that there are parents involved in communicating with the principal on both sides of this case. And it's important to remember that students are protected under FERPA. And as Mallory said, not sharing information with parents about other students that are not their child. The Equal Access Act, which allows students to form groups not linked to the curriculum. And in this case, it would be the Gay Straight Alliance, and schools cannot deny students to meet, which when this was brought up by Jimmy and Willie, the principal kind of brushed it off, but these students do have that right. And then the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination against a person based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And then we also kind of put underneath in the legal aspects malfeasance, which is knowing the law but choosing to be above it or make decisions based on personal belief or comfort, which we definitely see in this case. That the principal is making a decision to make everybody comfortable instead of doing the right thing. And then misfeasance, which is not knowing the law and then making decisions based on personal belief or comfort.
Let me interject right there. Go back one slide. There's also the third function of negligence there that that Mallory mentioned, and that would be nonfeasance, not acting on the PDA. She brought that out. That's a great point. That's how this thing all got rolling.
Mhm.
The little things become the big things. The antecedent behavior, the rule of antecedent behaviors. If you don't address them when they're little, they get beyond you. That's what misfeasancy, nonfeasancy is. When you had a duty to act, they were displaying public affection that same-sex couples couldn't do in the school, and had a duty to act and didn't. So this one hit all three of the functions of negligence, as Mallory pointed out. And by the way, what a tremendous job, Mallory. I'm gonna have to go back and get this recording. I love what you said. The ethical paradigms guide our behavior as individual school leaders. And I'm glad that we got to that point this semester that we picked up on. We have the law over here, but we're people too, and we need something that guides our behavior. And that's what ethical paradigm. Everything's not legal and illegal. Sometimes it's ethical and unethical. That's a higher standard, folks. And that's what we want. Gardner-Webb's a Christian university, but there's no but coming. Gardner-Webb's a Christian university. And if you got this training at any university, I hope that wherever you got your training, that they would make the ethical dimension a part of your training, because it guides your personal behavior. And as Christians, that's what we're all supposed to be, or in whatever our religion is. As humans, as individuals, we must have some sort of a guide for our behavior. And if you don't have religion, that's fine. Then you should know the ethical paradigms. But they dovetail together. And that was a great job, Mallory, that you did. And thank you, Neely. Y'all are hitting all the right notes. This case isn't really about being gay. This case is about any protected class and how you deal with them. People think this is the LGBTQ case. No, it's not really. This is about any protected class, what we would do for any child, whether it's EC or second language or Title I, it doesn't matter. Any protected class of students, that's what this case is about. And y'all have caught the essence of that, and I thank you for that. If y'all had a better instructor, y'all would really be good.
We learn everything that we know from you, Dr. Lim.
Don't say that.
All right. Okay, Neely.
All right, so we had 4 questions in this case study that we had to look at and then answer. So the first question, would you consider Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat? And our group said yes. Mary Lou, basically what she's trying to do is discourage the students' behavior. It's not being clear about the concerns from the school community and how it is or is not disrupting the school environment. She implies that it could incite violent behavior. So this would definitely be a veiled threat on her part. What are Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law, which we kind of covered a little bit of that on the last slide in outlining that. Her responsibilities are protect student privacy under FERPA, to allow students to form groups, allowing them the freedom of speech under their First Amendment rights, protect all student rights, regardless of race, class, gender, or sexual identity, which Dr. Lamb kind of touched on. This is a case that's not about 2 students who are in a same-sex relationship. Could be any situation with any student that would be considered under one of those protected groups. How should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? She should explain that she can't discuss information regarding other students due to FERPA. Those are things she cannot discuss, and that falls under FERPA and that student's privacy. And then should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend prom as a couple? And we said that Jimmy and Willie should be allowed to attend prom. The principal cannot discriminate against any student because parents or students may be offended. There's no evidence at all in this case that learning is being disrupted as a result of this situation. Okay. And Terrence is
then
going to
we
talk to us about.
went into bullying. We were talking about bullying, and with this, basically, we're not saying bullying just for this situation. Like he said, it could be anything from the look to EC students. Kids bully. That's a big thing nowadays. And it's not just because of them actually being gay. It can be any reason with the bullying nowadays. But no matter what the issue is, it's we have the due process. No matter what the situation, every offender is entitled to the due process, whereas you actually have a process that you go through with every student, giving them the fair, giving them equal rights to come in and make sure that it's not okay. You're just ignoring what's going on. You got to make sure you bring them in and see exactly what's going on and give them a chance to explain and make sure you're doing your due process. And with the due process, you want to make sure that you have consistency, equal opportunity disciplinary, deal with every case consistently. You don't want to stray away, say, oh, I'm going to do this for one. If I got to do it for Dr. Lamb, I got to do it for Nellie Potts. If I got to do it for Nellie Potts, I got to do it for Tori Ellison. You got to do it the same. If I can't do it for one, I can't do it for the other. And then you want to make sure you're monitoring, have a plan to combat ongoing behaviors. You want to make sure even after the first instance and you've addressed it and you've handled it, you want to make sure that you continue to check on it. Make sure you have a plan to make sure that that behavior doesn't happen again, that it doesn't keep going. You want to make sure that you actually have taken care of it, and you want to check to make sure that the students are safe, because that's the main goal, keeping the students safe throughout. Then we even brought up, like Dr. Lamb had just said, whether you don't want to be malfeasance. Basically, we're talking about with not having a plan to deal with repercussions of choosing to support all students. We were thinking about the dance and how the prom was going to go down and everything. You want to go ahead and you want to make sure you're proactive. You want to make sure you have things in place for at the dance in case something does go down. You can have extra officers. You can make sure that you have people, extra supervision to make sure that it's all in place in case something does go down, so that you're not sitting back and kind of knowing something it's a chance that something will happen, and it happens because you were being nonfeasance to it. That's just like a basketball game. You want to have extra people. You rather have more people supervising than not enough, because it could get where to when they lose, the crowd goes crazy or something. So you want to have more people there. You want to be proactive and not just sit back and just kind of say, oh, it's going to be okay. You want to be proactive to the situation. Examples, plan in place to deal with the bullying behaviors, monitoring opportunities for cyberbullying, so you can make sure you're checking out what's going on with the kids, see if they're talking on these phones and stuff, and extra security in place at the prom. Like I said, basically you want to make sure you have people there that are ready to diffuse any situation. You don't want anything to go down where it can actually escalate. You want to be able to make sure that you jump in quickly and handle it where it doesn't even get to past that point. You want to make sure you're right there ready. And that's basically the bullying aspect.
So in conclusion, a couple of things that we wanted to just review is the things that we've learned from this case. Of course, as far as the law goes, this case definitely covered a lot of the 14th Amendment, equal access, Title IX, all of these things that have to do with making sure you provide an equitable experience for every person in your school, because we are all human and we all have our preferences, we all have our needs, but when federal money is involved, everybody's got to be treated the same way. And so we put equal access equals equal denial because of the fact, like, does it though? Because when we talk about having equal access for everybody, this principle went the route of, well, if I got to keep them out, I'm just going to keep everybody out. Or like, if they come, I'm just shutting it down. And it reminds me of like a kid that doesn't want anybody to play with their toys. And so if somebody wants to start playing, they're like, no, nobody's playing with it. And canceling the prom for everyone because a decision by a few violates their rights of equal protection under the law. And then it's also Title IX discrimination, and that principal could be facing a lawsuit. So she needs to understand policy, and she needs to understand what she's legally obligated to carry out for every student in that class. Also, you cannot stop something just because you think it might cause a disruption within your school or at a school event. You cannot take someone's rights away because it may potentially cause disruption. There's a thing called the heckler's veto doctrine, which the heckler's veto pretty much can restrict free speech due to the anticipation of negative or dangerous response to whatever is being said or done. But as we looked into that more, it's typically found inconsistent with the First Amendment. Like case after case, people are like, well, we did, we followed the heckler's veto doctrine, I guess as you would call it. And one case might get through, but most of the cases that a school or an agency or an event decided to silence free speech or silence an action, they usually lost their case because you are silencing someone's free speech. For example, Tinker versus Des Moines was one of those cases in which kids were wearing black bands around their arm for protesting Vietnam, and that's all they were going to do. They were just going to wear it to school, being like, we're against this. It's not okay. And the school sent them home because they felt like, oh, this is just going to cause a major disruption in the school, and we're not going to have that. So they got to go home. They keep their free speech somewhere else. This is school, and they can't be disruptive. And so that case found that the school's decision stemmed from fear of possible disruption rather than the actual interference to the learning. So we have to be very careful about the decisions that we make because we're scared of the repercussions, because once again, we are in charge of everyone's safety, and we have to have those things in place to make sure everybody is getting the things that they deserve as far as their rights are concerned. And then, of course, Terrence talked about the protected groups. No one's rights should be taken away, including students with disabilities, minority students, and these the students that are in question in this case study. Nothing should be taken away because someone chooses to be or identifies to be or has a disability or is a minority student. Like there's so many things that we can accidentally discriminate with because we may have a personal preference or we may have some type of aversion to something, and that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to support all, keep everyone safe, and make sure everybody's getting their legal right to a equitable educational experience. And then last but not least, as an administrator, you better be careful about how you talk about other kids in front of other kids' parents, because this hit home with me because as an aspiring leader, I have to really be conscious of like what I say or how I respond to a teacher or not a teacher, a parent, because that parent may say, well, like, this is ridiculous. This shouldn't be happening or anything like that. And if we are saying like, I know, even though it's controversial, if it, we need it, that shouldn't, because that gives the parents some type of notion that you're buying into what they're saying, and that puts you in a tight spot too. So it's super important that you just take into account the privacy of every student and know who you're talking to. And as a leader, there's a very small group of people that you can actually be talking to. So that is our presentation, and thanks for listening.
That's great. Absolutely great. I want to make 3 points. You can stop your share now. I'm going to make 3 points here. And I'll start with the latest one that Mallory talked about there, talking about kids in school. So Dr. Sane works just like Dr. Griffin Jordan works with the Tuesday night group. Dr. Sane works with the Wednesday night group. He got a lawsuit when he was principal in Lincoln County because two of his teachers were discussing an IEP of an exceptional child. A third teacher came walking by who happened to be friends with the parent, and she couldn't wait to get on the phone and call the parent and tell her. And they got hit with a FERPA violation, got a fine, got found guilty. So you never know. You're thinking, well, nobody, it's just us here, just our faculty here. No, a friend of a friend burned him on that one, burned them. So remember that. Heckler's veto, an easy way to think about Heckler's veto is Mallory's mad that Neely is the teacher of the year. And she comes to me as principal and says, if that Neely gets off the bus in the morning, I'm gonna punch her in the nose. And so instead of punishing Mallory for threatening Neely to punch her in the nose, I call Neely up and say, you're suspended tomorrow, I'm protecting you. Well, that's just crazy. You're punishing the victim. That's what Heckler's veto is punishing the victim. And then the third thing, and let me see if I can get it up fairly quickly here. And this is to Terrence's presentation, by the way, great Terrence, on bullying. Folks, I think we've lost the public on the bullying deal. I hate to say that. But I don't know who Drew Shinneman is. He's probably the most famous political cartoonist of our time. And this is one of his within the last couple of weeks cartoons. And this one hurts when I see this one. This one hurts. And because, but he catches a sore spot. So I don't care about it. I want to go back. Come on. This is not the one I want. Come on. This is the one that hurts right here, folks. Can y'all see this one? If I can get there. School administrators, they've got a big sign up in red, stop bullying. What more can we do? I mean, the sign is already pretty big. What the national conversation is right now is bullying is rampant in schools, and schools aren't doing anything but just paying lip service or sticking up signs. They're not acting on bullying. They're not putting plans in place. They're just putting up signs. This is a national political cartoon. But this is the state of where we are right now, unfortunately, in the school business. That we're just ignoring it. It's uncomfortable. We don't want to tell parents that their kids are bullying. We don't want to have those critical conversations. We don't want to put plans in place. We don't want to follow through. We've kind of lost the narrative here, folks, for the public. When you start seeing things like that, that does not bode well for our business. The genesis or the kind of the takeaway from that is that schools are only playing lip service to stop bullying, and because of social media, it's completely out of control in some places. And that is, I'm afraid to say, that is correct. That this social media thing is, I'm not for putting the genie back in the bottle. I mean, that can't be done. But we've talked about bullying. We've talked about cyberbullying, that you got to get the police involved. You got to be serious about it. If you don't, it will eat you alive. It will absolutely eat you alive if you don't. Because unfortunately, too many parents participated in it as well. And how many times as a school administrator did I have a parent or two in my office? And what I wanted to say to them was the problem is your kid's an idiot and it's hereditary. But you can't say that. But it's true. They got it. They brought it from home. And because we don't want to have these critical conversations, that's why we're not dealing with bullying, because we don't want to deal with their parents, because they're bullies too.
Yep. Thank you.
And this case is those parents came in and bullied that principal, and she folded like a, like a cheap tent. One of them that you get with your free, your Vic card at the Harris Teeter out there in West Lincoln. Them little $3 tents that you put up. First puff of wind, they collapse. That's exactly what she did as soon as parents put a little. But again, those kids learned that bullying somewhere, unfortunately. And this is a hard one, folks. I'm not gonna lie. This is a hard one because parents are involved in this one, and a lot of them have their own political agendas and what their beliefs and all those kinds of things. I had a student, I told you, from one of the far west counties in North Carolina, said she wouldn't let him come to the prom. Said she didn't care about the law, said the community would be all over her. Well, but they won't know you when you get put in jail and lose your house, though, when you get sued. That them people that was cheering you on, they won't know your name. They won't even know what street you live on. Just like that lady, what was it in Kentucky that denied those people a marriage license, the gay couple, and then when she got sued, everybody that was boosting her up and rah-rahing her, they weren't anywhere to be found when she lost everything she had in court.
And it's worse, Dr. Lamb, because you got social media now that just makes everything bigger than what it is.
Well, it's a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
It's a magnifying glass. It's like the world is drunk now. Alcohol don't make you act differently. It just magnifies who all you already are. Well, the social media does the same thing. Unfortunately, it's just like alcohol. If you're an idiot, it just makes you a bigger idiot. That's what social media does. But we can't ban social media. So what we've got to do is establish behavior codes of conduct and behaviors and enforce the rules for everybody. I told you back in the 90s, I had a boy that wore a dress to school every day. And the only time, now I did send him home one time because his dress was too short. All the girls complained that I wouldn't let them wear dresses that short. And so I sent him home. He's had to come in a longer dress. You got to deal with it, folks. You can't just walk away from it. You can't hide because you're gonna get a little blowback from parents. It will eat you up. It will absolutely eat you up. Let's hear from our resident principal expert tonight, Dr. Griffin Jordan. Let's weigh in on this one, Dr. Jordan.
Okay, several things. The presentation was amazing. You hit all the right points. Terrence mentioned being proactive. You're going to have to be proactive, especially in a situation like this that's touchy, because you're under the microscope, but it's not just you. You and every single staff member that works for you will be under the microscope. If you have a parent that's out for blood and you're standing strong, they're going to try to find the weakest link in your building, and they're going to try to call them, email them. If the situation is extremely urgent, if it's something that you see will have legal aspects, if you don't act properly, you need to call your staff together. You need to make sure they all know what to say and what not to say. You think that everybody knows, but they don't. And sometimes it could be misfeasant, where they don't know that they're not supposed to say, yeah, I don't know why two boys want to go to the prom, but this is our district's policy. They need to know that they can't say that. So when you have situations like that, just call a 5-minute staff meeting at the beginning or the end of the day and let them know what to say, what not to say. Overcompensate, as was mentioned, do more, over communicate, over meet, as opposed to not doing enough, because that's where the problems will come in. You mentioned you're talking about bullying. Just this year had a case where parents got involved. There were 2 young ladies, and apparently leaving the classroom, one of them brushed past another one, and she started to hit her, punch her. So then the girl turns around and they both start back and forth punching each other, just, I have a very small school, so things like that usually don't happen. So, and they know that I don't deal very well with that. So they knew that, something big was about to happen. I talked with parents. One parent came in and was like, my child is the victim. I'm like, ma'am, your child is the one that bumped the other child. Well, no, because she's tired of her always messing with her. She's been messing with her since the beginning of the school year. Nobody knew. Before the parent came, because I knew what type of parent I was getting ready to work with, you got to know your parents beforehand. So I had all of my documentation laid out. I had the board policy. I had the student code of conduct. I had the paper where she signed saying that she knew that she could be removed from the school if she got in a fight, all that. I had all my documentation laid out for her. And she commits to telling me that if someone is bullying or messing with her child, the way they teach their children at home is to whip their ASS. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, we don't practice that here. You know, we teach students to avoid those situations. Well, you mean to tell me if somebody was bullying you, you wouldn't whip their ASS? It's like, no, ma'am. Well, that's the way we teach. So you're going to get parents. And me and my team, they were looking like, are they really saying this? Like, they're saying that they teach their child, if someone's bullying you, you go to them. So you're going to have to deal with that. But above everything, just make sure you have laid out your documentation. So when I suspended her, I had all of my documentation laid out. I recorded the meeting. They decided that they were going to remove the student from the school before the suspension, even though the suspension will still stand. But they withdrew her. All in point, just know that it's not just always the student. It's going to be the parents sometime that are teaching. And the little girl was sitting over there and I felt so sorry for her because she didn't say anything the whole meeting. You're going to be dealing with students that you're like, gosh, I know that's why you are the way you are. You're getting it honestly. But you cannot put your personal feelings in the way. You've got to follow the policy as written and go forth. But just know who the type of families that you're going to get, all types of families, and just keep that in mind.
That is correct. Again, yeah, this is learned behavior, and we can't fix all of society's ills, but we got to try.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing that we have. That's our job, is to try. That was a great presentation. I just couldn't be more pleased. All right, so we're moving on to group. Let's see. I wrote this down. Group 1.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
You.
All right, this is Zoom team number 1. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Ready?
All right.
Let's go.
All right, here we go. All right,
All right,
Whitney.
so we're starting out with an overview of the case, of course. We are normal 2. So this case was about same-sex gender males displayed public affection at school. They expressed that their desire to attend the high school prom together. Parents and students created a petition and they wanted to boycott the school. Principal Hines told the students and the parents that their behavior was disruptive to the learning process. They also wanted to do a day of diversity, a day of silence, and a gay-straight alliance to bring more awareness of same-sex relationships.
Looking at question 1, determining if the principal's comment was a veiled threat. As a group, we decided it was indeed a threat. She looked at the student couple and made them aware of the potential threats that were made against them. She did not speak up to protect them. And she also spoke of speaking sense to the students and potentially hiding their relationship until after the school year. So her agenda was to avoid the negative publicity that could come with it. So we felt like that was a threat from her, using the threat of the other parents and students.
All right, so the question 2 is discussing the principal's responsibility under the law. The first thing that she should have done is address the school's policy for public display of affection. We also felt that because of FERPA, you cannot discuss other students with parents. And then the biggest thing was the Equal Protection Clause, the Title IX, and the non-discrimination policy, which basically states that all students must be treated the same, no matter what, in a nutshell. And I'm gonna hide that. Okay.
Looking at the concerns of the Hudsons, we brought in the hecklers veto because they threatened to boycott the school. They threatened, well, protest the school. They also threatened to boycott the prom that was to come up later in the year. A heckler's veto transpired when we restrict speech because of a threat or an anticipated threat. And through my research, heckler's veto is viewed as an incentive for opponents to threaten violence even more. You know, if I get away with it once, I'll continue to do it. So we saw their concerns as null and void, and we have to make sure as principals, we do not address their concerns when they're addressing other students. We have to make sure we are politically correct and not talk about anyone else's students with other parents.
So the question was, should they have prom or nah? So we said that they could still have the prom, but the principal of course has to remind all students of the public affections policy and the school code of conduct. We realize that students cannot be banned from prom because of who they choose to attend prom with. Also, we stated that if children choose not to come to prom because of this incident or any of their religious beliefs, that's fine because that's their preference. And also, we stated that she should have extra security there for the prom just to make sure that everybody is safe. So any extra kind of supervision that she can provide for prom that night. But we agree that yes, they should still have the prom.
All right, so we wanted to kind of discuss the Day of Diversity, Day of Silence, and the Gay Straight Alliance, and can this be actually done at the school by those students? The ACLU states that if a public school permits any non-curricular clubs that are not related to content area, then it must allow students to form a gay straight alliance or any type of other club, and that the school cannot treat it differently from any other non-curricular clubs. And then we also kind of did some research. In 1969, the Supreme Court decided that the First Amendment right to freedom of speech applies to public school students in the case of, like the first group brought up, Tinker versus Des Moines. Students have the right to speak out, hand out flyers and petition, and wear expressive clothing in school. But the key is, as long as it does not substantially disrupt the functioning of the school or violate school policies that do not hinge on the message expressed. And then the biggest thing, when you are getting ready to do a day of anything, day of diversity or day of silence, it must have prior approval by the district's board of education. They just can't say we're going to do something in a school and it's not approved by the board.
So the 4 ethical paradigms. Keep in mind, ethical paradigms establish standards of behavior, and it promotes decision-making objectively and allows situations accessible. So when we look at justice, the principle, our job as principals, future principals, is that we must carry out the letter of the law. That is why we get the big bucks. We have to make sure no matter who the student is, whether it's the EC student, whether it's a minority, whether it's a single family, I don't care if they got glasses on, I don't care if they don't wear glasses, whether it's a female or whether it's a male, we have to make sure that we're following the law no matter who that student is. We have to also make sure that due process is followed. We don't get to just pick and choose when we follow due process. We don't just skip due process and go to the consequence. We have to make sure that it is followed. Even if you feel that it will upset someone, or you have a personal feeling, or you believe your religion, we have to make sure that we're following the law, and we have to make sure safety is carried out throughout our environment for all students. And so when we look at care, the principal must understand we serve all students. Our job is to make sure that if we're following the law, that we're taking care of our students no matter who they are. And taking care of students also means that we're providing a safe environment for our students. One of our jobs at our school for morning duty for our teachers is to make sure that we're outside our classroom greeting students. And in this case, so many things happened that didn't have to happen to lead up to why we're discussing this case. If in fact, these two students had been kissing, how long have they been kissing, showing affection? It was never addressed, and now we have this situation. But we have to make sure care is also when we serve all students. Critiques as a principal, we must provide due process as we stated, regardless if it may offend others, but we also make sure that we are following the public display of affection. We have to make sure that we are addressing those things in our school buildings, and that we're following the school board policies, and we don't get to pick and choose who we do that with. It is a policy, and it is our job that we are in place to make sure these rules are followed, and that should have been addressed first. And if teachers making sure that they're on duty and making sure that when they saw these things, that they are bringing those situations to the rightful person, and we are addressing those things immediately. And as professionals, the principal must, again, follow the law. We have to make sure that all rules, laws, and procedures are carried out. We have to make sure that our students, our teachers are equipped for when things like this happen. We have to make sure that they understand. We have to make sure that we're having those conversations, because they are the professionals, whether the principal's there or not. If there's a teacher there, that teacher is serving in that capacity of that professional. And so we got to make sure that they're trained. We got to make sure that we're addressing those things. And we got to make sure that we're just not talking to parents about all kinds of kids. If it's not your kid, that's just not your business. So we have to make sure that we are following the rules and the laws.
When it comes to the topic of bullying and cyberbullying, it's nothing new, just with what has previously been stated. I think we were all in agreement of saying that these students were most definitely bullied in many different ways and harassed. The thing with the principal, and the reason why I get so flustered about this and studying all of the case studies that we've had previously, I'm really triggered when it comes to like the type of environment that the principal has allowed to happen at her school. Because here is one case where we see a principal who is not willing to be part of the solution, but is rather supporting ongoing oppression, and not at one time addressing any issue. So she has cultivated a toxic disaster on all levels. So I feel like no student who is not compliant, or no student who is compliant, is actually safe. Like anything that wasn't her cup of tea, she most definitely didn't follow any of the ethical paradigms, nor was she following the law. So it offends me that she is even in position of one that we are all inspiring to be. So that was one thing. So let me get on to the next point. Harassment or threatened acts that take place away from campus may result in any disciplinary action through the school if action causes disruption or safety concerns at school. we see exactly what she did or what she didn't do there. School administrators must ensure that students are not targets. We see how she failed to do that, of harassment or other victimization. Educators have not only a moral, but a legal obligation. Man, we cannot say that enough. We cannot say that enough, to respond as well as to prevent threats and harassments. Next slide, please. So what we did was we were really talking about this because looking at the culture of this school and seeing how they were very ill prepared. They did not have inclusive language in place. They did not have equitable practices in place. We most definitely saw personality get in the way of what could have been a moment of progress. Something that Dr. Jordan stated was one thing we didn't see was even her addressing her staff to see how they could be protected from certain conversations or certain rumors, how they shouldn't engage. So they were ill prepared, not only as a staff, but as a school community. Like they were ill prepared as a school community. There are rumors that's running rampant, and these not only two individuals, but the families of the individuals are not being protected. We said that it should have been from there, being able to measure and gauge where her staff was, putting in potential PD for equitable practices, and how to teach her staff how to have more inclusive language, because of the simple fact that they didn't handle the PDA in the first case, makes me feel like any relationship had the freedom to do whatever they really wanted to do, and nobody was being called out. What would give someone who what they were claiming was abnormal the freedom to do that? Like nobody's just kissing in the library. So that also speaks to, like, you know, what were they consistent in laying down the law? Last but not least, and I say this to everyone, we see how even from this case study, and I don't know when it was written, but how culture has changed, like laws and policies have changed to protect all students. So was this principal ignorant to current policies for equity and inclusion and for current times and situations that's being faced in today's world? You know, like some of the language that was used in this case study from parents, highly offensive, like highly offensive. And so just like Dr. Lamb pointed out, you can substitute any word that could have been, and you would know that that would be highly offensive and not only inappropriate, but should cause some type of mandated report. Because I feel like this whole environment is just not safe. It's not safe for you. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for anything that wasn't fitting the mold. And recommending change in those policies if needed. Man, like it's a lot of work that is left unsaid from this case study. So I really had a hard time wrapping my head around it. And I wanted to make sure that I closed just to kind of be an encouragement to us that are taking those strides to step in to these positions where we have the influence to be the change that we want to see and what we want to cultivate. Because if not, we're going to end up just like Mary Lou. And I hope I am not in the class with some Mary Lou's.
Uh-oh. Did I stop sharing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Carl, you preached my sermon, so I won't have to. This
Sorry.
could be anybody. No, we got to. But this could be anybody, any class of people. You know, we could substitute any one. But one of the points that Carl made is times change, and we've got to stay up with the times and what's going on. We can't, as much as some folks in our society want to, we can't go back to a time before 1954. You know, Brown and Civil Rights Act. We got some people who want to do that, but that's hopefully that's not the majority, and that never ends well. It never goes well. But through the history of our country, things change, things that we don't even notice now. I'll take a moment of personal privilege here. I'll use my mother as an example. My mother, rest in peace, immigrated to this country as a white person, and was still heavily discriminated against because she was Irish and Catholic. We don't even think about that now. So as much as my mother went through, hopefully we have evolved from that. That's what I'm hoping, that down the road that we will continue to evolve, but we must be ever vigilant. It won't just happen because we want it to. We're going to have to work for the change that we want to see. And we have to be that person that holds that line and works for that change. It's not just going to happen overnight because you want it to, or change doesn't happen naturally. And so hopefully in 90 years, or hopefully it won't be 90 years, but hopefully sometime in the future, we won't even recognize that this was ever a thing. That's where we hope we are. But it takes a lot of work to get us there. And we've got to be willing to put the work in. Dr. Griffin Jordan, I'll go to you for a final thought on this one, and we'll move on.
This group did excellent, and they did bring up the original issue. The original issue here is the public display of affection. That kind of got lost in all the whole situation with the principal because she did wrong. But apparently maybe the rules were loose, possibly, until it happened with these two guys. And then when they missed, then okay, so it's a problem now. So being consistent and implementing your policies possibly could have stopped that. You know, two boys walking down the hall is nothing. You know, we see that every day. But when they showed public display of affection, that's when it kind of, got out of hand. And then Sandy mentioned as well, make sure you always address the code of conduct violation initially before it blows up. If you can do that and have all your staff members on board, this whole situation may not have gotten as far as it did.
The little things become the big things if left unattended. That's the law of antecedent behaviors. And in a school like this, same-sex PDAs end up in sexual assault, sexual offense, rape, indecent liberties. Those things that cost you your job as an administrator if you have too many of them. And they don't happen randomly. The bad things do not happen randomly in school. They start little and they build and they build and they're ignored. And in this case, maybe even facilitated. And then the next thing you know, boom. Oh, I've just got bad luck. No, you don't. It's not got anything to do with luck. It had to do with negligence on your part. You had a duty to act and didn't. But then when it got out of control, oh, I'm the victim here. No, you're not. No, the kids in your building that have been victimized, they're the victims by predatory behavior. That's what a lot of this is about. It's about predatory behavior. It's about, subjecting people to bullying or predatory sexual practices. That gets out of control in a hurry. It has nothing to do with gender. And so again, we circle back to this. Started out with nonfeasance, had a duty to act, didn't. Then it got out of control and then broke all kind of laws and ethical concerns and behaviors. And I'm like Carl is that this one is highly offensive to me. And we can't be that person. We've got to do better than this. We can't be that person.
So Dr. Lamb, if I could, like for a few minutes, I'll share my personal story. And of
Yes.
course, this was what, like 30, 40 years ago, whatever, when I was in high school. But I grew up in West Virginia. And in addition to that, I grew up in state's custody, which means I was in different group homes and things. So I remember in high school, I converted to Islam and I decided that I wanted to wear my scarf. And I went to the school. And of course, I was the only one there that was Muslim and was wearing my scarf, and it caused a big uproar. And I was called into the principal's office and told that I might not want to do that. My safety was a concern. I probably, shouldn't. And I did. I took it off. Of course, being in a group home, there was no parent, no parent representative or anything like that. And of course, now I'm learning all that I know now. Probably, they would have been in a lot of trouble for that. But back then,
Yes.
and where I was, there wasn't any. There
You
was
had no support system.
Yeah.
And the people that were supposed to support you didn't. And that's what that's just what roasts me.
Yeah.
The people who were supposed to be your champion, your savior.
Yeah.
Remember, we got to be champions for kids. How many times have you heard me say that? Never more importantly than what Antoinette just shared with us. And I'm sorry that you went for that, but thank you for sharing that with us. That's what we're talking about. Sometimes kids don't have anybody to be their champion.
Yep. So if the principal isn't, then there is nobody else.
Then not only do they not have a champion, that they get taken advantage of even more. We cannot run buildings like that, folks. I don't care if it's public, private, charter, doesn't matter. We cannot, our society will not exist if we allow our children to be victimized. Just cannot do that. All right, next group. Excellent, excellent.
Okay, Tori, can you see the screen? I have it up there.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Tori.
Hi. Okay, this is group 2. And I'm going to present this slideshow. It's Justin Newton, Amanda Redmond, Antoinette Williams, and myself. I'm going to get started with the students' rights, the principal quick reference guide to law. I just want to share that as administrators, I think it's just wise for us to get familiar with the law, school law. If we don't, then we won't know our rights and we won't know the students' rights, and then we'll run into possibly more problems, which we do not want. So I just wanted to share that. I think it's just so important that we kind of get familiar. It's just like with the Holy Bible, we don't remember all scriptures, but if we become familiar, then we'll know what we need to be doing. At least it'll come to mind. So I'm looking at section, I think it's section 59-63-110, citation of articles. And this article may be cited as Safe School Climate Act. I think it's from 2006, but I just wanted to share the part about harassment and intimidation, and bullying can be a gesture, electronic communication, or written, verbal, physical, or sexual act that is reasonably perceived to have the effect, meaning that it may have an effect on a student or anybody in those manners, those different ways. Sometimes people think physical, but it's a little more than that. And harming a student physically or emotional, meaning that emotional damage is just as effective as if you did something physical to a student, or placing a student in a reasonable fear. Sometimes people's words can cause students to be fearful. In this case, Miss Mary Lou, her just taking sides and not standing up for a student was an issue for me, real personal, because every parent, no matter what and who they are, they send their students to administrator, and just those students not having, and those parents not having the feeling that their administrators is supportive and they feel safe was a lot for me. And I'm just gonna skip down to 2. It says school, in the school classroom, premises, school bus. It's just like when parents put their students on a bus. It's the responsibility of school that these students feel safe in their school, in their learning environment. So I just wanted to share that, and then we're gonna go on, and I think it's gonna be Amanda. It's gonna share the 2 slides in this case, the first 2 slides, and then we'll move on to the next person. Amanda?
All right, so for question 1, we all determined that we felt yes, Mary Lou, comments were veiled threats. A veiled threat is anything that is a threat that's masked or concealed, is not outwardly stated. I think that Mary Lou also should have kept in mind that as the principal, you know, you have a level of influence and power. And for her to make the comments that she made to the students, even basically telling them, don't do this out of fear of something may happen to you, or you may have to worry about this, as if it's not her responsibility to keep everybody safe, was really kind of inappropriate, in my opinion, but also would be considered a threat. Under the law, Mary Lou has the responsibility to ensure safety for all students. And looking at the 1980 case, Rhode Island case of Aaron Fickle versus Richard B. Lynch, basically a federal court upheld the high school senior's right to bring his male date to the prom, so that in this particular case study, there wasn't really an issue with that. The court also ruled that other students' responses did not justify banning them. Again, that kind of goes with the heckler veto, not making decisions based on others' opinions or the statements. The Supreme Court and federal court cases since then affirmed the policies or actions that block same-sex couples from proms and dances, and policies created to make such discrimination possible violate students' rights to free expression and association, which are guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States. As well as it's Mary Lou's responsibility to uphold Jimmy and Willie's First and 14th Amendment rights for freedom of speech, and to not be discriminating against them based on their sex.
Okay, so how should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? I mean, she should respond professionally to the receipt of the email from the parents. But she's responsible for keeping their information confidential and not discussing any information about the other students. On top of that, you know, I said she should respond professionally, but once they started throwing around F words, this conversation is over. You know, you can see your way out kind of conversation is almost what they needed to say to her. You know, just kind of letting them know that that she can't discuss anything with them, and seek further information from the superintendent if she needed to, if they continue to try to take it maybe above her or to the district. Should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? So this one, I said this is not a case of should she allow them, she must allow them to attend the prom. If she didn't allow them to attend the prom, she's going to have more problems than just some parents setting up a petition for them. And I also put that she should remind everybody of the PDA rule, because that wasn't addressed in the beginning. And then I said, in addition, that she might want to provide some extra protection or just eyes around to protect the boys from bullying, harassment, and discrimination, even at the prom, because I could see that possibly could turn into an issue also. And the principal has the right to ensure and protect all students under the 14th Amendment. She can't deny any equal access to any group of students based on religious, political, sexual, or otherwise.
talking about bullying and minimizing the bullying and cyberbullying in this case. I feel like anytime it has to deal with bullying or cyberbullying, you want to make sure that you are proactive rather than being reactive in dealing with those issues. The principal in this case kind of had to act in a sense of damage control due to the some of the lack of professional judgment and handling of the matter that she had done herself. In an ideal world, kind of when this was brought up and was necessarily being discussed, she should have probably gone ahead and had a discussion with the staff as well as the student body on the awareness of the bullying policy. That way they can distinctly define what bullying is, what a harassment is. Also talk about the appropriate model behavior that goes with that. And then also talk about the consequences and remedial actions that can happen and can occur. And on the slide, I also put the section 5963-140 from South Carolina that talks about the school districts and being able to adopt those policies prohibiting harassment and everything that can go along with that. Because technically, due to other students and their actions and reactions and them participating in bullying, that could actually come with a consequence of them not attending the prom because they're doing they're in the wrong for bullying the students in that case. And the principal just needs to make sure that she's being proactive with the staff and also letting them know that this may carry over into cyberbullying after the prom or during the prom with pictures and posts and things like that that could be getting made that could be a problem that could be a disruption to the learning environment as well.
All right, and that was our last one, Tori.
Yes, that's the last one.
Very good. All right, our last group of the evening. Excellent job, by the way. Excellent job. And Anthony, again, thank you for sharing. I was just reminiscing about one. My favorite doctoral student of all time was Jordanian, Muslim, and things have gotten some better, but not a lot, unfortunately. I'll show you the picture, me and Razan here in a few minutes. So what comes up last here? We've got group 3. You're on deck.
All right, hello. All right, we're gonna go quick because everything's been said. It needs to be said. All right, so here we have case study 3. We are normal 2. Kelly, do you want to take this slide first?
Sure. So in looking at were Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat, we said yes, they were a veiled threat. And then the evidence to support that from the case study is when she tells the parents to speak sense and to help them to understand the dangers they courted in their actions. To me, it wasn't really even a veiled threat. It's pretty much right out there, the fact that she tells them to speak sense to their children. Though she doesn't come out and say directly a negative consequence will ensue, she does say that there's going to be a consequence, and based upon the tone in her voice, we can assure that that is a negative consequence.
I'm just going to kind of summarize all of this because I know that's a lot. She has, as I was researching all of this, and Kelly and I kept seeing the First Amendment pop up: students' right to freedom of speech, assembly, expression, their right to petition. Parents and students have a right to petition, but student speech cannot be suppressed for the sole reason that someone may be offended or create an outburst in response to speech. That was in page 99 of our law book. What I came across, what I kept seeing was that when making decisions regarding student expression that is disruptive, they have to be able to establish proof of imminent or substantial disruption, which these boys were not. And like we said before, the PDA should have been taken care of first. And that would have prevented all of this. One thing that I saw that was pretty interesting in our book, it asked, are the students that are protesting merely testing the patience of the administration? I know we see at my current school, which is at a very affluent school, parents will kind of push and test the limits with our administration to kind of see how far they can go. We had protests last year, so this I was kind of thinking back to all of that. And that principal should make sure, I thought this was really important, that their response to the expression and their actions are not the actual disruption of the school. And we've kind of talked about that tonight, how parent or principals or administration, how they react can cause more. And I think that goes back into play of, not speaking and talking to parents of things that are not their concern. But it is her responsibility that all students must enjoy the same rights. And I kept seeing Tinker versus Des Moines pop up that came about the Title IX, that schools cannot discriminate or exclude students based in extracurricular activities based on their sexual orientation and gender identity. And she has to prove that the relationship is disruption, which she can't do that because then that means every relationship is a disruption. And no, that's not going to be able to happen. I kept seeing the words proof pop up, like you have to prove this, and there's no proof of that.
All right, so should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Cindy and Jerry Hudson? Oh shoot, did I take the wrong one, Jessica?
No, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, so Mary Lou has the obligation to listen to their concerns. You have to listen to their concerns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to agree with them or act on their concerns. But they need to have the ability to express their concerns. You need to be able to adhere to school board policy on student freedom of expression and conduct. Parents and students can protest peacefully until it disrupts the learning environment. And Mary Lou can place prom on hold until the activity is no longer a threat.
Should Jimmy and Willie be allowed to attend prom? Yes, absolutely. If she does not allow them, she'll be in violation of Title IX. And schools may not exclude students from school activities based on students' sexual orientation. One thing that I kept seeing also was that I was talking about is a learning environment. And prom is a privilege. And so that's kind of on the next screen, that she has if it really narrows down to prom, if that's really what you're stressed about, then you got a tough road in front of you. But I just think, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
You want me to pick it up?
Yeah, it'll come back to me in a minute.
Okay, so addressing or minimizing bullying, you need to look at the state's anti-bullying law, civil rights under the Title IX component. It should have also, we felt like from the beginning, there should have been some sort of anti-bullying curriculum, whether that's through SEL, that children are talking about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable within not just the school board building, but in life in general, as far as bullying other students. It needs to be defined and included in the district and school handbook of what bullying is. Kids need to be aware of this, what the consequences are for it. Principals need to investigate complaints and take disciplinary action appropriate to the facts. No matter what is brought forth with you in regards to bullying, you need to be consistent in how investigations are conducted and give all complaints an investigation to make sure that there is follow through. And then finally, make sure that you involve the parents in the process and create a supportive school climate where it's a joint process and collaboration between the school and the parents.
And that's it. Short and sweet.
All righty.
But Dr. Lamb, I do have a question.
Yeah,
Okay, so in the case study, it talked about what the parents called Willie and Jimmy. I don't want to say the word, but is there any action that the principal should take on that?
absolutely.
Because I was trying to look up about like harassment, sexual, like
Well, I mean, the principal just witnessed a crime, a
Right.
hate crime. I
Right.
called the resource officer.
Okay, that's what I was.
You can't
assuming
allow
you-
that kind of thing. I mean, why do you think kids act this way? Their parents act this way. School is not a safe haven for criminality. That's
Right.
why you've heard me say, don't care who, call the law. You cannot establish that when you step on school grounds that you can behave any way you want to.
Right.
That the law no longer matters. Parents are kids.
So in that case, Mary Lou should have contacted,
Absolutely.
and then would she have contacted Willie and Jimmy's parents, or would the police?
Absolutely. They've been threatened.
Okay, I didn't know like how that felt with like
Yeah, I mean,
FERPA
it's going, it's out of control now, but you can't let somebody's going to get hurt now.
right,
I
right,
mean, it's out of control. You could have stopped it early on, but you didn't. But now, the person that's not going to stop it early is not going to stop it late. But somebody's going to get hurt in this case. I can tell you right now, somebody's going to get hurt.
Dr. Lamb, the thing that
It may be
kinda-
you.
the thing that really messed me up about this case study is Mary Lou is probably gonna get away with it. Like,
Yeah,
she's probably gonna get away with it. And I like in doing the work for creating framework around diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. We see this more often than not, where like kids are really being bullied. Yep, exactly. Like from that cartoon, it's like we give the optics of what we are trying to do, or we give the illusion of what we're putting in place. But man, it's just crazy. She's probably still gonna be a principal,
yeah. And knowing that if she does the right thing now, that it's going to be bad. So she's going to continue to do bad things. But that's the notion. So here are my pictures before we close tonight. This is Razan Almani. She's a Jordanian student of mine, doctoral student who graduated a couple years back. If you knew Razan, and you don't even have to know Razan, everybody deserves dignity, folks. Everybody, not a better person I've ever met in my life than Razan. You got to understand that these people, that it's up to you to make sure. Razan's a grown young woman and got young'uns, bunch of them, but still, it was my responsibility to get her through. That we could not allow her to be less than, or somebody to treat her as if she was less than. That's the role that you're taking on, and that sticks with you for life. And so there's my personal testimony. And then here, the last thing to close out the evening. This one may harm you, so I'll be forewarned. Here's my last prom picture, my last year as a high school principal. This is me and the missus. Let me pull it up here. Where are we here? Here we go. There I was.
That is not you.
That's absolutely me. That was absolutely me.
Handsome, Dr. Lamb.
That's
Did
nice.
what?
You're quite handsome.
I was. Time's a cruel mistress. It gets y'all. That's me and my sweetheart of nearly 40 years. That was that picture's how old? That picture's got to be 25 years old. I guess it had. Yeah, I guess that's about right. Well, 23, 20, yeah, about 25 years old. That was my last prom as high school principal right there. So,
Dr. Lamb, you should have said, in honor of this case study, everybody bring a prom picture to share.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So now what you are going to do, and the call came out today. Let me stop my share. What you are going to do, and so y'all can be thinking about it. We do a little celebration at the end in 6:05. and you bring pictures like that and family and pictures, and we'll do a little ceremony, we'll do a celebration in class. And then of course, obviously you get to go across the stage and have your name called at the ceremony, not at the big one, but at the College of Ed, which is bigger than the other one because we're the biggest college. But yeah, you'll get your opportunity to share your pictures of your family or pictures, but don't do like me. Don't bring one that's 25 years old. We want one that's more current than that. And then the last thing for the evening, as we go to close tonight, I have to. I don't know if some of you might have already heard, we lost one of our classmates over the weekend. Sonia Wingett. Sonia was in this class last semester, and she was a hoot. She was a fabulous lady from Wilson, North Carolina, worked at Tar River Academy. Now you talking about doing God's work, working at Tar River Academy, that's God's work. Sonia was a young 61, but cancer came back again and took her over the weekend. Her funeral's this weekend, but Sonia was a fabulous lady, and we're really going to miss her, but she'll always be in our heart. She'll always be our family. And you will always be our family as well. And the notion here is families look after their own, and you do the right thing, and the kids in the building and the community becomes your family. It's your obligation to do the right thing by them. That's what this case is all about. It's not about LGBTQ or any of that. It's about doing the right thing for the kids that are in your charge and the families in your community. It's about doing the right thing for them. That's what our real job is.
I would like to share. We have something called the Golden Apple Award every month, and I won the Golden Apple Award for the month of March.
Well, congratulations, Tori. That's wonderful. You know, these celebrations are important. We need to lift one another up during tough times. As again, I circle back to class. We could spend a whole lot more time on this, but we got to protect ourselves, and we got to do our jobs, and we got to be family members. As I tell people all the time, nobody has to die over this. Let's lift one another up. Let's remember those of us that we lost one over the weekend, and I hurt for her and her family, her daughters, her grandchildren. But she'll always be in our heart. She really will. She's let's see, you can look up her obituary online. Let me go back to that. I had it up here just a minute ago. Stevenson Funeral Home in Wilson, North Carolina. Stevenson in Wilson, North Carolina. Fabulous lady, Sonia Wingett. And that's how we'll close tonight. Thank you all. You did a tremendous job tonight. Again, it must be Dr. Griffin Jordan. I know it's not me that's teaching you all this, but you're doing such a good job. There's no but coming. I'm pleased with every one of you, and you're doing great. So we will see you next week, and Dr. Griffin Jordan will lead our group. And so I will see you all then. Everybody have a good week. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.